constructed, and great, operators in the country, rather starting with developers as well as 3PL providers, are making huge strides on this. You do see some, different innovations that are happening in terms of bringing the warehouses closer to places of deliveries. Again, we are run like the US around pin codes. The smaller delivery centers are getting closer to the large residential hubs. If you have to have a license to do an operations for a warehousing, in Karnataka, if you have a commercial license, you have a land use commercial, you could also dispense of warehousing solutions from there. Now, to make it organized and to make it effective, the sizes that we need to work on are sort of a challenge in terms of availability of land, and availability of such solutions that can be built in for a variety of reasons. One is just, some industry verticals would like to do it between 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, but those are very, very far and few between, and those do not require too much of long-term thinking. It could be a short-lived, off-the-shelf solution, both from the landlords as well as the operators. But where we are seeing traction, and I think we have way to go, is within city limits, if I should call that, the requirement of at least 3 to 4 acres of space to create sizable solutions. Warehouses are not multi-storied unless you're looking at a vertical warehouse, which is, which could be a proper RCC structure. But if you're looking at warehousing kind of a solution, ground plus one is proper at the max that you would go to. Then there are aspects of how much you would be able to deliver in terms of usable space. Mezzanine does get added up, but most of the delivery centers and in-city centers don't really require mezzanine. So they would purely be a storage solution. Now, in terms of that, for the landlord side or the developer side, the dilemma is, the payback periods would not come handy around between 7 to 8 years. And then adequate parking place with the residentials already sort of overburdened with lack of parking availability for the general public does cause some grief, on this segment. Like Shambhavi said, there are certain aspects that need to be changed at a thought leadership level. I think there is some discussions and some policies that need to come out in terms of regulating this space also. We are absolutely well regulated in the large spaces of fulfillment centers and all that. But in the in-city centers, this is a struggle. Now, in terms of self-storage solutions, right, which is a very, very in thing in much of the developed world, you could do that at a drop of a hat. We are not yet there, right? I mean, I think the rental proposition that you have for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom to keep versus to move out and then reestablish, there are certain dilemmas. Again, it's an evolution curve. I think we are going through that process right now. What it does offer is there are multiple 3PL players, right? Third-party logistics providers who do this for many large manufacturers who take space in a volume-based kind of a level. It could be a record management company, which could be setting out certain spaces, which could be used for this, for the personal records, for personal, storage. It's not very common right now, but I think from an infrastructure perspective, the infrastructure exists and it can become a good income stream for some of the large players or organized players and who have this kind of not just the setup, but also the operability of being able to manage this. So there is some, work to be done on that. But I guess we are, the necessity is it drives a lot of innovative aspects in our lives. And we have seen this in the last 7 to 8 months already. So I'm sure we will drive towards that. And these couple of innovative aspects will pop up for sure.
And I think the current situation is given that nudge that we necessarily needed in India for self-storage spaces. This one is directed to you, Rajesh. With an increase in yield from upcoming asset classes, is there a higher risk in investing in emerging asset classes? And is there any way to ensure that this investment is secure with the involvement of new age companies?
Surprisingly, now what's going to be happening because of the current scenarios, the world is now moving towards horizontal development rather than vertical development. The density of people living in a locality will matter a lot on their health concerns in the near future. I'm not talking only about the current pandemic, but even in the future, people will want to be comfortable in low density zones. The craze for the vertical developments has now eased out, and the government also wants to have horizontal developments in the country, especially in India also. The government is building infrastructure on a rapid pace, especially railway train stations and highways, which is going to connect 2-tier, 3-tier cities closer to the metro cities like Mumbai. Development going from the center of the city outwards is what is going to be the trend. What the developed countries have shown in the past couple of decades is what is going to be happening to India again. What is critically important is the merger between the developer, the property operator, and the customer. Now, this is going to be in sync together. And we have always realized that the safest investment that people have been exposed to in this country is real estate. So property is a very safe asset to buy. Bank leveraging is a lot of intelligent people are leveraging banks to create assets which appreciate very fast. Now, the key to understand is where do we invest this money in? The asset location selection is critically important. Then the quality of the property is very important. The facilities of that property is very important. And the infrastructure development zone from the angle of the government is critically important. What appreciates the value of the asset is the infrastructure development, because with infrastructure, your location becomes more closer to the happening part of the city. The center parts of the city have seen stagnancy, or prices have been corrected to a great extent. But real estate is no more going to be an FSI game in India. That's what I mean by saying horizontal development. So it is going to be reverse migration of opportunities. The whole rural part of India was chasing the metro cities, but now the people of the metro cities will start chasing the 2-tier and 3-tier cities, because the opportunities are going to be there. Government is also incentivizing any form of doing business in those areas of the country. So I feel a lot of new decisions are taking place, a lot of new opportunities are coming up, and people need to leverage on that. Every city grew in the last 50 years. Now, in the next 50 years, the outskirts of the city is going to grow in the same manner. The highest revenue that people can earn during their lifetime is the appreciation that a real estate asset ownership gives you. So nobody can shortcut on that. Everybody will look at it as an opportunity for the near future and far-fetched future. So I feel asset class is the safest to invest. And now with operators coming in for senior living, student living, or for co-living, your assets are going to become more remunerative. These are all very efficient methods of making your assets more remunerative, which can ease off the repayment pressure on the asset buyer. So I think these are new times. This is the new world order. And I'm sure real estate is going to be the backbone for wealth creation for each and every family in the country.
We would have seen a similar shift in customer ethos when it comes to buying properties in the GCC region, where they have micro cities in Dubai and even in Europe and Italy, where they had set up a few smart cities. The next question is to Nidhi on student housing. Student housing works on a slightly different operational model as compared to generic co-living. Can you throw some light on the differences in terms of setup and the financial impact? And also, how does it measure up in terms of buyer expectations when it comes to the yield from the property?
So I always say student living is hospitality on steroids, right? You are not only, you don't have one client, which is the student, you have two very involved parents typically, and potentially a college as well, right? So you have to kind of, create your product so it suits and everyone's requirements, right? For a student, the most important is Wi-Fi, right? God forbid there is no Wi-Fi in the building one day, hell will break loose, right? But for the parents, it's very important to ensure security is of key importance. And for the college, obviously, just overall security and the experience of the child. So one has to ensure that your product is effectively taking care of all those aspects. As far as student housing and co-living go, I think the difference is that with student housing, you have to overlay the entire service experience with very, very strong SOPs, right? So you're taking care of kids who've come out of home for the first time, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, right? So right from attendance checks to ensuring that they are safe, want to give them the freedom, but and not make it feel like a jail, but also you're answerable to the parents at some level, right? So ensuring you strike the right balance on, their security, right? So that becomes your responsibility implicit. On top of that, obviously, food becomes a very, very critical thing, right? These kids are eating 365 days, 3 meals a day. And obviously, they're used to eating at home, but they would not complain. But, again, if one meal goes wrong, again, hell breaks loose, right? So I think food becomes an integral part of the offering. As now, unlike working professionals who typically end up using the space to, stay, just come back from work and that's it, right? Students end up spending a lot of time in the campus itself. So that would, say the study rooms, the common rooms, the gym, their rooms itself, right? When we design our student housing spaces, we ensure the rooms are the most comfortable, right? Because we realized initially these kids like to hang out in the common spaces, but once they've made friends, they'll either spend time outside or in their rooms. They need light, fresh air, need enough space to study. The study tables, the bed should have a lot of storage. And also the longevity of your client is much longer than a co-living space, right? So typically my student is staying with me for 3 years, as opposed to a co-living business where your churn could be anywhere between 3 to 6 months, right? So from that perspective, you have to ensure that the student is comfortable enough, there's enough storage space, there's enough space to move around. So you can't compromise on certain elements of the structure of the place itself. From a return perspective, I think, with the way we look at student housing is, your parent is the ultimate person who's paying. So we actually find student housing a lot more stable from a return perspective, because one, your student is staying with you for 3 years, right? So your customer acquisition cost on a unit dwindles quite quickly, right? So you've got your student in one and you've got the student locked in for 3 years. Secondly, this is a very big word of mouth sort of an advertisement for us, right? Once a kid comes in, they will get their friends in. So after our year one, we don't really have to spend much money or efforts on marketing the properties, right? Once they're off ground, they kind of fulfill themselves on their own with word of mouth. Because your parents are ultimately paying, right? There is more stability in the payout. You can upsell a lot to these students. Your parents are paying for it ultimately, right? So I think from that perspective, we feel that the sustainability of this business, the annuity and the cash flows are a lot more robust than a co-living business where people are constantly churning. And the differentiation in the product for the price point that is typically on offer at the market is very difficult to do. The current co-living market that actually exists is around the 7 to 15,000 rupee range, right? And typically this is somebody who's earning anywhere between 30 to 50,000 rupees, right? You can't take 25, 30, 40% of their income towards housing, right? Whereas on students, your typical average ticket size is much higher because parents are willing to pay for the security, parents are willing to pay for that extra comfort, having a warden they can trust. So all those aspects actually make a huge difference and you can charge the premium for that.
The price of the property typically is a lot lower as universities are slightly farther away from, the heart of the city, and the yield is, much more, and, the customer acquisition costs are definitely lower. And I think you've covered all of this. Thank you. So the last question for our panel here is to Shambhi, is that with the advent of, Internet of Things and smart everything, a significant number of assets have now been classified as smart homes and smart offices. And Shambhi, as a PropCo creator and management team, is it turning out to be a formidable challenge? And how did this prove to be beneficial for operators and consequently the end customer?
See, in the mid segment, to quickly tell you, today we have almost 31% of population which is living in urban areas, and this is only going to go up to 60% by 2050. What are we looking at? Almost 38 million homes which are going to be needed by 2030, and India being one of the most populous nation by 2030. If we are talking about technology in this housing, it's not only about how smart these homes are, but it has to address everything, right from the way it is being constructed, the technology used in construction, or the technologies being used within the community to make the living better for the residences, right? We are talking about building homes which are smarter or better configurations, which are affordable, which has space efficiency planned very beautifully, products which have innovation integrated within the complexes, and the beautiful overlay of technology which enhances the living standard of the residents over there. A very important aspect today, what we have realized is, since the COVID has come into play, people are looking for homes. They do want a comfort and security where the families can live within the integrated communities, where everything that they are looking for is taken care of. Now, this is something that has not come to us at Embassy as a surprise, because we have already put our thoughts together and planned on these products right since 2018 when we launched Embassy Edge at Embassy Springs, which is Bangalore's one of the largest gated communities or a township project that we have put together. Right. I completely agree to what Rajesh mentioned of the fact that communities going ahead are also going to look at low density projects, sustainable projects, and for a gated communities. The entire concept of 15-minute city is what people are going to look at, with an overlay of a beautiful technology taking care of everyday aspect of their life. Now, let's look at technology within senior living for that matter. It will definitely enhance the business outcomes and improve the residential care for sure. Be it the wearable bands or motion sensors or managed lightings of the rooms. This data collection technology is definitely going to improve the care that providers are going to give to the residents within their facilities. It's not merely about the say physical item. It's an entire overlay of technology. How the data is being collected, analyzed, and then conclusion drawn from the data points. Not just know what these residents or seniors are doing, but from this, we need to be able to predict what they will do and tailor our care to ensure that we are giving them the much needed services from their predicted behavior. So you can look at wearable technologies, which is resident monitoring systems, which takes care of looking after their health and sleep patterns. And when we speak of IoT, we are looking at how it enables them to control the entire environment. So one is the integration of the wearable devices a resident is wearing on self, and the integration of the same with the technology that is being built within the complex or within the resident unit in which they stay. Managing the light sensors, air conditionings, heaters, or even interact with the AI personal assistants. Then we have telemedicines. So wearables and IoTs take care of the safety and happiness of the residents, where telemedicine is going to look into the health, right from video conferencing for health education, remote modeling of residences, or even teleconsultation. And then we are talking about voice activation, which is a common thread across IoT, be it wearable or telemedicines. And this is everything to do with managing the devices to the human voices, which empowers their residents. And then there is a security through CCTV cameras, video, phone doors, so on and so forth. But it's not just technology that in isolation that we can really speak about it. The challenges about integrating this technology is always going to be the same, even in senior living. It's about adaptation and the engagement that we build through it. The entire experience has to be seamless. Residents and the caretaker needs to be interested in wanting to engage with this technology with much simplicity. Right? It's called interoperability as a concept. One should not think that, okay, is this technology going to help me get the next resident, or my residents going to move out because they are feeling difficult to handle this entire technology. And the buyers who move into these spaces definitely need to ask that, say that, hey, I'm going to move into this this entire facility that you have built together because the way you have integrated technology and the way you are taking care of the residents, making our lives very simple and safe for us to stay.
Right. Very well articulated, Shambhi. Thank you so much. We're just going to say a quick goodbye to Rajesh, who I believe is on another panel at 1:15.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the audience. Thank you so much for the panelists. Got to learn a lot from your sharings. Have a God bless day. Thank you so much. Pleasure knowing all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Balaji. Thank you. Thank you to House Monk.
Really appreciate you putting this together, and thanks to everyone for, learned a lot today. Thanks very much.
We'll just quickly close off this session, and I think we've sort of overshot the time that we had planned to overshoot as well. So thank you so much, Shambhi. Thank you so much, Nidhi, for spending time with us. And we really thank the audience for participating in this event as well.
Thank you, Balaji.
Thank you.